June 1st, 2009. Air France Flight 447 was a scheduled international passenger flight from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, to Paris, France. It was flying over the Atlantic Ocean, and the flight was supposed to last about 10.5 hours. But contact with the plane was lost around 3 hours after departure. The aircraft had just left Brazilian radar coverage and was entering an area with no communication. So, what happened next? To know what happened to Flight 447, tighten the seatbelt and stay tuned. The aircraft involved in the accident was a 4-year-old Airbus A330200 with manufacturer serial number 0660. This A330 first flew in 2005 and is one of the newest in Air France's fleet. The aircraft was powered by two General Electric CF680E1A3 engines with a maximum thrust of 68,530 or 60,400 IBF. The aircraft underwent a major overhaul on 16th of April 2009 and at the time of the accident had accumulated about 18,170 flying hours. The Airbus A330 is designed to be flown by two pilots. However, due to the 13-hour flight exceeding the maximum 10 hours allowed by Air France, without a relief pilot, 3 pilots are on board Flight 447. The commander of Flight 447 is Captain Mark D., aged 58. He joined Air France in 1988 and has 10,188 flight hours. The first officer is Pierre B., aged 32. He joined Air France in 2003 and has 2,136 flight hours. The relief pilot is David R., aged 37. The aircraft was carrying a total 216 passengers, 3 aircrew and 9 cabin crew in 2 cabins of service. Among the 216 passengers were 126 men, 82 women and 8 children, including 1 infant. Weather conditions in the mid-Atlantic were normal for the time of year and included a broad band of thunderstorms along the Intertropical Convergence Zone, ITCZ. A meteorological analysis of the area surrounding the flight path showed a mesoscale convective system extending to an altitude of around 50,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean before Flight 447 disappeared. During its final hour, Flight 447 encountered areas of light turbulence. Commercial air transport crews routinely encounter this type of storm in this area. With the aircraft under the control of its automated systems, one of the main tasks occupying the cockpit crew was that of monitoring the progress of the flight through the ITCZ, using the onboard weather radar to avoid areas of significant turbulence. 12 other flights had recently shared more or less the same route that Flight 447 was using at the time of the accident. The cockpit becomes illuminated by a strange electrical phenomenon. The co-pilot in the right-hand seat, an inexperienced 32-year-old named Pierre-Cédric Bonin. The captain, Marc Dubois, a veteran with more than 11,000 hours of flight time, tells him it is St. Elmo's fire, a phenomenon often found with thunderstorms at these latitudes. The other co-pilot, David Robert, returns to the cockpit after a rest break. At 37, Robert is both older and more experienced than Bonin, with more than double his colleague's total flight hours. The head pilot gets up and gives him the left-hand seat. Despite the gap in seniority and experience, the captain leaves Bonin in charge of the controls. The captain leaves the flight deck to take a nap. Within 15 minutes, everyone aboard the plane will be dead. The two co-pilots discuss the unusually elevated external temperature, which has prevented them from climbing to their desired altitude, and express happiness that they are flying an Airbus A330, which has better performance at altitude than an Airbus A340. In the meantime, Robert has been examining the radar system and has found that it has not been set up in the correct mode. Changing the settings, he scrutinizes the radar map and realizes that they are headed directly toward an area of intense activity. Shortly after, the aircraft encountered severe turbulence and icing conditions, which caused the plane's airspeed sensors, pitot tubes, to malfunction. As a result, the autopilot disengaged, forcing the pilots to take manual control. The first officer, unfamiliar with the situation, overreacted by pulling the nose up, causing the plane to climb rapidly and lose speed, eventually leading to a stall. Despite repeated stall warnings, the first officer continued pulling the nose up, worsening the situation. The aircraft, now stalled, began a rapid descent from its cruising altitude of 38,000 feet. Although the captain returned to the cockpit, he was unable to regain control, and the plane ultimately crashed into the Atlantic Ocean. Earlier in the flight, the plane had climbed 2,512 feet above its initial altitude and was still ascending at a dangerously high rate, though it was technically within its acceptable limits. However, the first officer once again raised the nose of the plane, causing it to lose speed and triggering the stall alarm. The pilots, possibly unaware of the danger, ignored the alarm. This might have been because they believed it was impossible to stall the aircraft. The Airbus A330 operates under a fly-by-wire system, where control inputs are processed by a computer that usually prevents the plane from leaving its safe flight envelope. However, when the autopilot disconnected due to the loss of airspeed data, the aircraft switched from normal law to alternate law, which imposes far fewer restrictions on pilot inputs. In alternate law, it's possible for pilots to stall the airplane, something the first officer may not have realized. Consequently, he might have assumed the stall warning was a false alarm, not understanding that the plane's computer had removed its own protections against stalling. They failed to recover the plane from the stall, and the Airbus A330 plane crashed into the mid-Atlantic Ocean at 02:14 UTC, killing all 228 passengers and crew on board. As an international flight, the aftermath of the flight's disappearance is governed by international treaty law, including the Warsaw Treaty and Montreal Conventions. These treaty provisions provide that the airline is automatically liable and responsible for all actual damages and losses sustained by Air France passengers. The victims' attorneys do not have to prove the airline's liability, but only the damages to the victims and their families. Air France, France, and Brazil have removed caps on victims' actual damages. The crash of Air France Flight 447 highlights the crucial need for enhanced pilot training in managing unexpected manual control situations, particularly in aircraft that rely heavily on automation. The incident revealed gaps in understanding how to operate the plane under alternate law, where standard protections are no longer in place. This tragedy serves as a reminder that even advanced technology cannot replace the importance of human expertise and decision-making in critical moments. Improved training protocols and a deeper understanding of automated systems are essential to prevent such disasters in the future.